Hi, honey. I'm so excited to have you on the show. So, how has this lockdown been for you?
So I've been relaxing in my own way. I mean, after the first 3 months of postpartum recovery, lockdown happened, and I didn't have any FOMO of missing out anything in the world, which I think was the best part. So I could really relax and concentrate on the things I wanted to do. So during this lockdown, I actually started learning Kathak, which was a long time dream, to really do it rigorously, and it couldn't happen because nothing was online, everything
Right.
was in person. So this gave me an opportunity to kick that off, and it's going to continue hopefully for life now with online sessions. I started a platform called the First Parents, which is an initiative to connect new parents and mothers to doctors across the world and specialists, because I thought it's a lockdown and they're all available. So
Right.
it was an idea that, why not give everybody the opportunity of a second opinion from the best specialists across the globe using digital and technology as a medium. I also got through my PhD. I gave my final round of PhD because I
Wow.
felt like, oh my God, the world is coming down and there's an apocalypse out there. And what if I lose my job? What am I going to tell the world that, oh, I lost my job, I was fired because of coronavirus? So I should have something in the backup because I just can't sit idle. So I said, why not apply for my PhD, which was again of one of my bucket lists, just to be called Dr. Hania.
So, that was real relaxing. That was.
Yeah, and I keep doing DIYs to celebrate monthly milestones for my son so that I can just get an opportunity to dress up and look good and come out of my room. And I have a 9.5-month-old who I love.
Wow. I have learned so much about you from people you have either impacted, people you're friends with, people you have really, really connected with professionally, personally. So this is very, very interesting to know. Like every time I think about it is inspiring, is and I really want our listeners to know many parts of it. So, I want to begin with like the toughest one, the space where you really felt that self-doubt or like really questioning every possible way out of your situation was your reality. And instead of giving into that, you said, okay, no, no, that's not happening. That's not how my life will be. I'm going to take charge of life, which is so tough for so many people. So I'm getting goosebumps even while saying these words because I know the journey that you have been through. Please tell us, what was it like to make those tough decisions?
Um, I come from a very humble background, from a very small town called Siliguri near Darjeeling. And I'm sharing this because context for everything is very, very important.
Right.
Um, I don't think that, it's education or it's status that makes a difference in terms of the decisions or the personalities we have. I think it's context and the environment. And
Right.
for me, that played a very big role growing up. I was kind of a black sheep rebel born into a very humble Marwari community in Siliguri, where I questioned everything, like right from the question to why is red red. Somebody must have said this is red,
Right.
and that's the reason it's red. Like it just
Right.
can't be, that is, or is there a manual that God kind of sent in this earth saying that okay, this is red, right? So people would like laugh at me. I would ask like, why is the earth round? And they're like, no, it's just round. Just learn it, and you just have to write it in the paper.
Right.
So as a child, I've always been very curious. I've been very like rebellious in terms of, I don't know whether you should rebellion is the right word, but it's been for me. I just don't take things for granted. I need to know why. Reasoning is very important for me. So for me, I grew up in an environment like that where my parents also encouraged that attitude. They never like questioned me like, okay, no, this is not the way you do it. Actually, the
Mm.
world more around me was the one who was telling me that this is the way
You
you
have
do
to
it.
fit in. Yeah.
Fit in, or for simple things like as a child you always get asked a question that what do you want to study when you grow up, right? Or what do you want to be when you grow up?
Sure.
And I would always say I want to do engineering, but I don't want to go to traditional engineering college. And people would just turn around and say इसको कुछ नहीं बनना है, इसको सिर्फ excuse देना है. Now that I look back to it, I can connect the dots that at least I had the clarity of what I did not want to do, even though I didn't know what I should do. Coming from the context that I came from, marriage played a very, very important role. And Marwari got
Right.
married at a very young age. And my parents proposed the same. And I got married at the age of 21 willingly. And I was very happy because I thought that I'm getting married to the most progressive man in the world. He is allowed me to work. I'm allowed to work. मेरे को और कुछ नहीं चाहिए life में. I didn't know what is allowed. Like Why am I even like saying that? But for me, 12 years ago, it was a very big deal. 2008, 2007, this was in a Madu community for a girl to be allowed to work and not stay with her in-laws in a city like Bangalore
Hmm.
was a very big deal. So I was very happy. I was like, this is the best marriage I can get, offered by someone. I
Right.
didn't care about money. I didn't care about what the background was. I didn't care about what his legacy was. And yeah, I got married, and that's when reality struck hard. He expected me to become a woman suddenly, whose responsibility is to run the house, and her education and her career and her dreams are all her hobbies that she needs to balance out. There were many things that went on in the process, but one specific thing that I want to mention about, which our society doesn't talk about, is the invisible scars that happen in a marriage.
Right.
जब किसी को मार पड़ती है वो आप दिखा सकते हो, see my scar, right?
Exactly.
But when it's invisible scars, when it's verbal abuse, when it's questioning your integrity, your thought process, you can't show it to anybody.
True.
And giving up your dreams for somebody else, and just for the sake of love, is not okay. Just giving up on your ideologies and your thought process for somebody else is not okay. Accepting somebody else's way of life is not okay. And when I realized that this is not okay for me, and I'm not going to just live my life, that's when I decided to walk out of it. And that required a lot of courage, a lot of
Of course.
grit, and I think a lot of josh, because I don't think so I would have done it in hosh.
So when you're making those decisions, and it wasn't like, so before, like, tell me about your inventions. Were they already in place? Had you already worked with the Indian Army? Had you already?
Yes.
Please tell us about your invention. Like,
So my
when did that
first
happen, and how
innovation.
did design happen for you? Like, in this whole process of like a conventional life, where what was the aspect of design, and what was your connection with it?
As I mentioned in the very beginning, I've been a very curious soul since the very beginning, and I just felt that how can someone invest their entire life in studying something post 11th and 12th without really knowing what the job entails. So
Right.
actually, after class 12th, I interned at an HDFC bank to understand what people who study BCom honors or BBA or MBA, etc., do, especially in the banking sector, because that seemed like more of an ideal job for a woman at that point in time. And I realized that I'm not meant for a monotonous job. I am curious, I am innovative, I can make things happen. And hence, I wanted to choose journalism. So I ended up going to Delhi. I still was very inclined towards pursuing something in my creativity, but again, my context did not give me enough opportunities or exposure to understand what was out there.
Right.
So when I went to Delhi, I was studying English honors, and I realized there's something called design, which is really, really interesting. And it's not fashion, it's not jewelry. You could do product, you could do graphics, you could do commercial art. And it was again very hard to explain it to my parents, right? So they didn't know any other design other than jewelry and fashion, because
Yeah.
media mostly talked about that. But I pushed my way through. I did a little negotiation with my dad, and I said, "How about I do both? English honors and design." So I pursued both, and fortunately or unfortunately, I have this intuition where start to question things that at least I am doing, and I
Hmm.
felt that the way India, in India they were teaching product design was at a very shallow level at that point of time. It was mostly talking about the craft sector, teaching about the craft sector and artisans in India. And I felt everything's a product. A ringtone is a product. A service is
Right.
a product, right? Why don't we talk about the larger scheme of things in how do you really problem solve or really
Solve.
design
Yeah.
something? It could be a service, it could be a system, it could be a physical object, tangible, intangible. And hence I kind of pushed myself to figure out what's there in the world, and I figured out that there's this program called design thinking at Stanford. I really like wanted to know and how to get into that program. I was fortunate enough that they were running a program called Design for Extreme Affordability. So I ended up working on a project that was from the same class of students, and during that process I learned about design thinking, and it led to my first real
Right.
innovation which went out to the market, which was embraced. But before that, in my design school, I had invented like a low cost filter for army jawans in high altitude areas. So I'd experimented a little bit with what does empathy and design lead to. So it
Which
started
is
very
which is if you look at last 5 years of design thinking discussion in India, it's still valid. Like I have many designers I work with and friends in this space. So I really come across how now design thinking is more accepted in India compared to what it was back in the day when you were exploring and talking about it. So
yes.
that's amazing. Yeah, okay.
So I don't know. I've always been a little bit ahead of the curve somehow based on my intuition and my work, and I deep dive into whatever I am doing. And hence, it's exciting for me to kind of, unravel things before they become a norm.
So that was your first journey, and in the middle of it, so MIT, which was like the big leap and something that happened magically for you. Please tell us about your scholarship, your way to MIT, and so many times people think one day I will pursue my dream, one day I will look at it. They keep thinking that there would be a right time and situations will allow me to jump in, and that time or that situation never happens, and so many people remain on the periphery and they never jump into what they really really believe in, or they believe one day if someone else would have agreed to my choices, so they would have encouraged me enough, I could have done it. Now I have jumped into my dreams, and I know how liberating that thought is. Now when I heard your story, I thought this is amazing, and our listeners must hear about how just pursuing a simple idea without any doubt in your mind can create wonders.
Um, I have always been a person who notices little things, and I think curiosity has really pushed me learn about a lot of things, and the attitude of not being afraid to ask has helped me learn a lot about things that you might not be aware that are there in your environment. I
Right.
start this answer by saying this is because I've never shared this on a public platform, talking about it for the first time. When I was going through my worst, I'm just that person who was thinking that what can I do now? I am at rock bottom. Things can't go any worse than here. I have walked out of my marriage. Um, I have nothing. I have no chips on my shoulder to show. I might have talent. I might have everything within me, but the world doesn't see it.
Right.
And I said, how about I make myself fly so high and meet such unexpected dreams that people would look up to me and take an appointment to meet me. The same people who are demeaning me at this point of time. And there was this meeting going on, and people were blabbering and telling me how worse of an individual I am and how badly I'm defaming the family, and how I should not exist in this world primarily. Um, and I was just like, I just wanted to get off that discussion. There was a spark in my head, and I just went up and opened my laptop and I applied. And I was looking for applications, and I looked up only two schools in the world, Harvard and MIT. And I have no idea why. Please don't ask me that question. Why didn't you look at Oxford? Why didn't you look at
Yeah.
Carnegie Mellon? Why didn't you look at Stanford? I don't know. Okay, I just looked up these two universities, just applied to these two universities, and yeah, and I made it. I mean, rest was history. I mean, there was a lot of history around it as well, but I can just go on and on because I've not studied maths for like 13, 14 years in my life. I was 27. Last I studied maths was when I was 18.
Right.
But yeah, I think just
So 13 years of no math, of one like the marriage and all the criticism, and now you're sitting here directly applying for the first time to an international school, that to MIT and Harvard, and figuring out with no financial backup, figuring out. So it's very interesting for me because when we talk about high performance, we talk about when people are at the lowest. There are stages which they build, and then they come to a point where they can believe and they can step up and they can jump to the next level. Now here you are, you're really in the lowest point. Not only other people, but you're also doubting yourself at some level, and you decide the toughest journey, and that is fascinating. Like, why your story fascinates me is specifically for this reason, because what is unreachable when you are in the darkest spot, is even the normal space to walk around. And here you are standing there and saying, I don't want to walk, I don't want to run, I want to fly. And not tomorrow, I'm going to do it right now.
Because for me, it's always been like that, Aditi. I've always looked at the stars and said, why should I look at the moon? If I look at the stars, I'll probably land, if I aim for the stars, I'll at least land to the moon. So for
Yep.
me, it's always been like that. If I try to fly, at least I'll definitely know how to run. That's part of the process, right? You can't just take off without running. So that's just a step. I don't need to think about step. I need to think about what I really need to do if I get there.
So I'm gonna add here. So you decided to call every single person, every bank, every billionaire, anybody who is, in the space of helping students to go and study after receiving a letter from MIT. And then Mr. Tata, Ratan Tata called you and like you called him, called his office, and you really asked for the scholarship.
See, I don't know. Most of my friends tell me that I perform best when I am like under pressure. And I've started to realize that actually lately and accept it. But I feel it was highly curated. All the skills that I had, built up, English honors, design, design
Right,
thinking, product design, how to write, how to communicate. I put all that together because I was like, here I am, where people were questioning me that I'm good for nothing. And I've been
right,
accepted to one of the most prestigious colleges of MIT.
right.
Not that I have just got an acceptance letter, I've received a personal letter from the HOD saying that he's been the happiest ever to
Wow.
accept a person like me, which was an affirmation and a huge validation.
Sure.
And I just couldn't let that go. And I was like, if I've got till here,
I can't turn
money
back.
is the last thing can be a hurdle on my way.
Right.
This letter should be enough to get me the money,
Mm.
right? So yeah, I had no money. I had less than 10,000 rupees in my bank account, and I did apply the whole process of design thinking. And I said, who has money, right? The goal is money.
Right.
So money is there with friends, with family, crowdsourcing, and online Indiegogo platforms, etc. had just kicked off. You can still see my campaign and donation is still there on the Indiegogo platform, where I just raised about 2,800 odd dollars in about 10 days time. So I tried everything, right from crowdsourcing money to friends, family, billionaires, politicians, film stars. My Twitter account, I tweeted everyone. I DM'd right from Amitabh Bachchan to Amir Khan to Priyanka Chopra, you name it.
Right.
Because I was like, they talk about philanthropy, they talk about changing lives.
Right.
Why not me?
Right.
Right? Everyone doesn't have to be in a rat race to be an actor. They can also support other people. So for me, money was the focus, and where can I get it from?
Right.
I reached out to many people in that process. I used Google as the only platform because I was nobody. Nobody was
Right.
going to connect me to Bill Gates or to Mr. Tata. I just used Google, and I basically deep dived into Google to figure out their email addresses. I didn't find them though.
Hmm.
And then I used my brains. I said, okay, what is the possible email address of somebody who is running an organization like Microsoft? It could
Right.
possibly be B. Gates at Microsoft, Bill Gates at Microsoft, Gates.B at Microsoft. So I
Right.
kept emailing till I stopped getting the failure delivery message. And hence I
Wow.
cracked the email addresses of the top billionaires in the world.
Wow.
Not only that, I was actually feeling great, and that, oh, email address cracked. And then I was like, so what? The secretaries are going to be seeing this email. They are
Right.
not going to give me the money based on that. So I said, and I have 15 days to raise this money. So I said, why not call them? Right? And as crazy as it sounds, I actually figured out which office do they sit out of? Where are their headquarters? There's enough paparazzi that shows you, okay,
Right.
so and so operates from here, so and so operates from here. So I figured out which headquarters do they sit in, called
Right.
the landline, which was the operator, connected, and again, as I say, rest is history. Similarly, I did it even with the MIT professors because it was just not the tuition fee. I had to even survive in Boston, right?
Right.
So what about my everyday living expenses? What about the cost of, meeting my basic needs as food, shelter, etc.? So I actually emailed every single professor who was working with developing country projects and landed myself a research assistantship before I went.
Before you, wow, that's amazing. When I look at your handwriting sample, the curiosity part is not only about solving intellectual problems. There's very interesting aspect which your handwriting talks about is diving deep and executing something that you see in your mind. If you see things coming in reality, when you see them actually happening in front of you, is exactly where you feel my process is done. And once you do that, another part of the same stroke or same handwriting part is you walk away from it. You're not necessarily sitting there and really figuring how can I get benefited, how exactly this can give me money. For you, the genuine curiosity to solve a problem in the best possible manner and seeing that execution is enough. And which is so interesting. When I look at your story, when I look at your experience, the way you talk about it, you might have made so many different, I can't say invention, but interventions in areas where otherwise people don't delve into. What questions do you have for me based on your writing?
One thing I definitely want to know from you from my handwriting is how is it that I'm so clear about what I want years from now?
Okay, interesting. Now, in handwriting, we have something called disconnected writing. Okay, and another is connection. So the way you connect your letters, one letter to another, talks about how you connect different thoughts. Whereas another aspect is disconnected writing. So you have gaps. You write a few letters and you pick up your pen and I'm saying this, I'm describing it also for anybody who's listening. You can look at your own handwriting or someone else's.
I
So,
am.
so if you look at your writing, you have disconnections which are prominent. Anybody with disconnected writing has this capacity or superpower of being intuitive. So, what is intuition? Intuition, is it daydreaming? No. Is it really like thinking and imagining something and making sure you make vision boards out of it? No. Intuition is actually having a snapshot, having a glimpse of something that is possible for you or your subconscious mind is constantly working at. When you saw other people who you thought were achieving really, really big things in life, in your mind, because you desired that and you believed in it, your mind was constantly calculating what else is possible for me, how can I solve these problems. But we do not allow those thoughts to come to us when we are really busy in our everyday mundane life. There are moments where those doors open. For most people, that happens when you're pushed into a situation that you never wanted to go in. It happens. Have you heard of those grandmothers who could pick up a truck because a grandchild was stuck inside or under the truck? Now, they never believed they had that capacity. But when you're pushed in a situation, when you know that there is no way but to count on yourself, your body and your mind expands to a level, and that these capacities are always available. These are not capacities that come to you. They're always available to us. We just don't have access to it. So in the moment when you're really thrown off your balance, you also let go of everything that you know. And that's the time, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in these moments where you're questioned, sometimes at the deepest end of an emotional crisis, you see something that is unbelievable, but still it is believable, right? You know that this is accessible for me. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I just know it will work out. Now it is very, very interesting. Most people, we look at the world and the way we celebrate intelligence is about logic. It's about cognitive thinking. It's about connecting one idea to another and celebrating the connections between the two. But when we talk about great leadership styles, when we talk about thinkers or leaders who really, really, bend the reality to create something that the world was not ready for, what did they do? They really tapped into this exact capacity. Even with leadership, when people talk a lot about, oh, how do you deal with crisis and how do you not lose your balance, and great leaders have spoken about this again and again, that I know that in that moment I did what I felt it was correct thing to do in my gut. The gut is being prepared throughout your journey. It is not prepared one fine day. So that curious girl who questioned why red is called red, the same curious girl who didn't want to accept the obvious choices, was constantly questioning. But questioning or asking is not about receiving. Questioning is about seeing the gaps, but that doesn't mean we are always ready to accept the answers that the mind or the subconscious mind or at a deeper level is also connected with, as we call it, the mass consciousness is connected at multiple level, but we are not willing to receive that information. So when we are broken, when we are sleeping, when we are not in control of our life and situation, this is where the receiving can happen because you feel you don't have any control. You are not controlling the outcome, you're not controlling your thoughts, and that is that moment of transition. Having said that, not everybody has the courage to walk down that path. All of us are given those moments of, I call them gifts of wisdom. Like, they're beyond our control, and some people look at them and they're like, oh my god, this is possible, and they know that in their gut, but that doesn't mean they walk on that path. They look at it, they say one day, and then they keep it aside. Let me clarify this, okay? Even if you see that that is the journey you can take, the journey is something you still have to take. And it is still tough, and still, it is full of rejection, it's full of failures. But because you had seen it, because you had experienced that moment, and you knew in your gut that it is possible, you couldn't have given up on it. And that's, I believe, sets you apart from other people, because if you have seen it, if you know it's possible, you won't leave a single stone unturned, which I feel is a part of your character and personality, which is not about can you intuitively see it or not. You can, and many people can. But are you willing to walk down that path? Are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to really, really do whatever it takes? Because it's tough. With all calculation in mind, it's really, really tough. So you have really, really cracked it. And in a way that you are willing to crack it again and again and again. One thing that I am looking at your writing, and that's just fascinating, that you haven't, like, you're still unsettled. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a sense of feeling that it's not like I'm unsettled because I want to go places. Not that, not greed, not like drive to achieve a lot, but moreover, if I haven't realized myself, if I haven't figured out what all I can do, I cannot really sit down and not do it. One of my favorite quotes is by Carl Jung, where he said, the only goal we have is to realize our actual authentic self. Now, I feel without knowing the psychological part of it or without dwelling on it, you are constantly committed to that.
Interesting. For people like me who have a handwriting like this, what do you think is, do they make better leaders, or do they make better business? Because I mean, there are things that I want to do in my future which is really related to either leadership or, I mean, being an executive, right? Both are two very different parts and different paths as well.
So I feel even if you're an executive, you will always be somebody who would lead, so that is not a question. So, would you be an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, as they call it, like internal entrepreneur in an organization? You'll always be one of them, because following other person's vision, which you do not necessarily believe in, is the toughest thing for you to do. And as you said, nobody has to do it. People don't have to agree to other people's way. Now, you will always find your expressions. So, working with the other person and collaborating is a possibility only when you are celebrating your own ideas. If that is not happening, you cannot do that. You cannot work with people when you don't find your own expression. Now, I'm saying this also from a space, if you choose a role of leadership, if you choose a role where resources and other people can really contribute to your idea, you will shine. But if you have to work at something only for a job, only because one day you will get a project that you can work at, you've tried it, it doesn't work for you. Yeah, you get bored very, very quickly. That is
Oh,
like
yeah.
one of, yeah, so one of the gifts and challenges. So when you are bored, it shows on your face, it shows in every action that you took. So from being like really, really willing person, you just start feeling unwilling, and you're like, but what's the point? And then there is this other side which starts building an argument, which convinces you in no time to walk away, move out, do something else. So that happens.
That's true.
Also, as you said, no, a person like me. Now, if I have to really talk about a person like you, I feel you're multi-talented, multi-passionate human being. And most people think that is a space of being confused, that's a space of being clueless. Today, having achieved the things that you have, this you also feel like, okay, I can celebrate this part. But you have been this person throughout. Like, you have been this person who wanted to pick a skill and reach the highest point of it. Now this will happen, and in our society now, we're still accepting people like this. We are celebrating people who look obviously inconsistent, but this non-linear way of being is not celebrated. But it's not for the success, it's not for the achievements, but it's fundamentally for the approach with which you get in, which I feel is very, very important, and which will be questioned. And you know that every time you are working with a team of individuals, even they don't understand why. Even if you're their boss, your colleague, your subordinate, they don't understand you. So my recommendation to you, or my suggestion to you, is please find a way for other people to work with you, because they can't hack it. So that is your biggest challenge at this point in time. When you're working with a team, you find people slow. You're working with people, you think they're not creative enough and they're not getting your point. And why can't they see what I can see? All of that happens, but that's not their problem. Technically, you have to find a bridge from your space to their ideas. And I think a good leader is somebody who can keep that idea of the future in mind and can really build steps for other people to walk up. And I feel this is where the existing challenge is.
Yeah, it's extremely frustrating to keep doing that.
Yeah,
Like
I can imagine.
it just feels like it's just so simple. Why can't you just get it?
Also, because people don't come from your background, they don't think like that. And let's accept, because they don't think like that, they can really help you function on a consistent basis. If everybody thinks like you won't be able to think the way you do. So it's important that your team has the other skill sets that you do not have. So right now I can feel the impatience building. I can feel that you really want to move really, really fast. But this is the point. This is a choice to make, like, cultivating people. That's a skill I highly recommend that you actively work on.
Thank you.
Okay. So I want to ask you, and we have spoken so much about your success and your achievements. What was your favorite failure?
Uh, it's hard because I think each failure teaches you something, and then you can handle a bigger failure towards that.
The most favorite, the one which you like really feel happy that you failed at, so that your life changed.
I think marriage,
Hmm.
because everything else is so easy, but fighting with your own loved ones, I think, is the hardest. And it's it's not you who's failing. You failed at a scale which is not even measurable, because the society is calling out to your parents that you are a failure. Not
Right.
just honey, but even as a mom, my mom was told that as a mother you are a failure because you've not taught her any manners. My father was told you've not taught her any sanskar or etiquettes or the way
Right.
to be as a girl. So when your failure, whether it is in a corporate environment, whether it's a marketing campaign, or whether it is personal, when it's pushed on to others and doesn't let them breathe, I
Yeah.
think that can be the biggest failure anyone can experience, because you can deal with your own little failures, but to take everybody else's load as well is too hard to fight, and you can't fight everybody
You
else's load.
can't. Yeah, true.
So I think that's my favorite failure, because I was like, I'm at rock bottom and I need to grow so high that the same parents are saying, that the same people who are saying that, oh, honey, tumhari beti hai, should be saying, oh, honey, tumhari beti hai. So that shift
It's a
and that power to shift that tone, only you have it. And I think very few people get that chance in life to do it. Or maybe everybody does, I'm not sure.
I think few
And I
people
took it
take
head
that
on.
chance.
And I
Few
took
people
that
take.
head on. I was like, you know, the same game of the matador and the bull, where the dust was all in the air, and I had no
Right.
idea as a bull where I was running. Um, the red handkerchief that the matador holds was something that I could see based on my intuition, which nobody else could, given the dust. Everybody else was just a spectator. And I was just running behind it. And I knew that I'm going to win this. And I have to be wild, and I have to be crazy, and I have to be unpredictable, and I have to fall and fail, hurt and kick and, hurt
Do
people.
whatever it
People
takes.
and, yeah, hurt people on the way, which is the hardest, right?
Yeah,
And be
yeah,
alone.
yeah.
Be alone in that battlefield. So that's my favorite failure. And I'm so happy that I failed at an epic level that I can celebrate where I am today.
It's amazing. That's amazing. Like I am moved, and this is so beautiful to hear that. I personally have gone through the journey of walking out of my marriage and experiencing all that you spoke, and the social stigma. And I know internally what all it takes, and especially dealing with society and seeing your parents struggling with their own emotions is not the easiest thing. Having said that, today when you look back and you look at your journey, I think it's amazing. What would be a one quote or one sentence that you use to really pick yourself up, or like motivate yourself, or any poem or any quote that comes to your mind when you really want to build it up again and again?
Um, I know this sounds very filmy, but I have always been saying this since I was a little girl. So
Okay.
I am my own favorite. I know Karina said it way better than me,
Yeah.
but I am my own favorite. I love surprising myself with what I can do in life. But moreover, I think the quote that inspires me to push myself is just keep growing. It's as
How
simple.
nice. How nice.
I don't want to
Keep
be
growing in
stagnant. I don't want to be.
any way, anyhow. Like, it's like the every next growth brings in its own surprises.
Yeah, I just can't be a pond. I have to be flowing. I have to grow.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I'm so happy that we have had this. Also, I know I feel in so many ways people look at our journeys, and people look at their own lives, and they only talk about how I can reach there. And one day when I reach there, I will be like recognized. And people don't want to take this tough path. The fact that you're willing to go through it is incredible, and again, I feel like that is the most interesting part.
It's because I don't think people have the courage to fail again. And failing requires being fearless, being courageous. And I'm so happy I took that leap. That's my favorite failure. It's only because I've crafted a new life for myself. I'm married to a man I love. I have a wonderful life. I don't have to take permissions. We are both individuals. I have a lovely little boy now.
Yeah.
It's I didn't give myself a second life. I think I gave myself my own new um, rebirth, so to say.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much for being on the show, and all the best for every single innovation that you will be creating in your life. Thank you so much.
Thank you to add to the pressure.